Hi guys, and welcome back to our Unreal Engine course. My name is Hussein Mashaikhi and I hope you are all doing well wherever you are. In this session we're going to get familiar with our viewport in Unreal Engine and also learn how to navigate through viewport and use the tools and controls that we have available. Alright, let's start with basic movements. So if you hold down your right click and then use WSAD, you can move throughout your scene. W goes forward, S goes backward, D goes to the right, and A goes to the left. So W forward, S backward, A to the left, and D to the right. Alright, now if you push E, you go up. If you push Q, you go down. E up, Q down. Remember, everything is done while you're holding down your right click. Okay, now you can also do something else. Hold down right click and move the mouse and it will be as if you are moving your head. So it will be as if you are standing somewhere and just moving your head. Okay, now if you left click and hold down your left click, you can move on the X and Y axis like so. Okay, I'm holding down left click, I'm just moving in these two dimensions. All right, now if I hold down left click and right click, I can move in the three dimensions. I can go up and down on the Z axis as well. All right, okay, so while I'm holding both left and right click, I can move in any dimension that I want. Okay, and I suggest you start working with these navigation controls so that you can get the hang of it faster, because later on when you are working on a project, it will save you so much time. Now there's something else that I can do. If I select an object in my scene and push F on my keyboard, the camera automatically focuses on that object. So regardless of where I am in the scene, if I select an object and push F like this, it will take me to that object. And this is a very useful tool again. So remember that, F on the keyboard, wherever you are, it will zoom on it and focus on it. Now, the speed of this camera movement that you are witnessing right now is controllable and we can just adjust that speed. So if we go to the camera speed here, it's on 4 right now, we can put it on 1. And now you can see how much slower the camera movement has gotten. And if I put it on 8, you can see it's gotten a lot faster. Okay, so you usually put it on 3 or 4 and that would just work fine. Okay, so this is the most common speed that we usually work with. Now we have another option called camera speed scaler, which works like a multiplier for our actual camera speed. So for example, if I put the camera speed on 1, this is the speed with which the camera moves. Let me show you again. Okay, this is 1 and the scaler is on 1 too. So this is the speed. But if I put the scaler on 2, for example, the camera speed will be multiplied and it will move twice as fast. So it's like a multiplier. If I put it on 10, it will move as if it was the camera speed was 10. So if I put 200, it will be a lot faster. So the camera speed scaler works like a multiplier for our camera speeds, and we usually just leave it on 1 and that will just work fine. Again, like I said, a speed of 3 or 4 would just work fine. Now, like many other 3D programs, we can have multiple viewports, multiple views. For example, we can have a view from the side. Okay, we can have a view from another side. We can have a top view, and we can just navigate our way using each one of these viewports. And it actually helps a lot when we are working in a scene where we would need to have different angles available to us at all times. So we can just use any viewport that we like and just work on our scene. And also I can choose which type of view I want to have on my viewports. For example, I have top there. I can just go to perspective, put top, bottom, left, right, front, and back. Any view that I want, I can just go to perspective and change it very easily. And it also comes with some shortcuts, which I'm not really, using that much because it's hard to memorize these ones, and the finger placement for these are kind of weird. So you can just go to perspective and use the view that you like. All right, now something else is that our viewport right now is the default viewport. If I choose cinematic, for example, you can see that these two black bars are added at the top and bottom, and it gives us a cinematic look that we can use. And we just put it usually on default. That's just works fine. And if I have a camera in my scene for whatever reason, let me just add one here, change the angle. We're gonna learn more about it later on, but for now, if I have a camera, that camera is going to be added to this list. So I can go to perspective and choose this Cine Camera Actor 1, and we can have that camera's view and we can use that camera. All right. And if I click on this button, I get rid of it, go back to the default view, but I have the view of the camera on the side, and I can just click on this and get rid of that too. So again, that's a very useful tool to have. Later on, we will just talk a lot more about cameras and how we can use them. All right, next we have view mode, which is very important. Right now it's been put on lit. And on lit mode, we can see the objects, materials, textures, the lights, reflections, refractions, everything. We can see everything when we are viewing it on the lit mode. But if I put this on lit, even if we have lights, we're not gonna see anything except for materials and textures. So even if our scene is dark and we don't have any lights, we're gonna see the materials and textures, and that's a very useful mode when we have not added any lights and we want to investigate the materials. And also when we just import a scene into Unreal Engine and we have not worked with the lights, we can just use unlit, and that's going to be very useful. We have some other view modes on the list. For example, we have a wireframe. When we put it on wireframe, obviously we see everything in a wireframe mode and nothing's fleshed out. We have other options, for example, lighting only. If I put it on lighting only, it would be as if we have one single material and one single texture color, and we will only focus on lights. We have reflections, which is basically a focused mode to view the reflections. We also have player collision, which is, let me just show you what this does. So if we go to game mode and we click on play, okay, now if I want to move through this table, I can't. I just get stuck. It would be as if I'm a concrete object and I can't just move through it. Okay, and similarly I can't go through the floor. Okay, and if I put this on visibility collision, every object with collision is just shown to us with this color. So all of these objects are working with collision, and we can't just go through them. Okay, we also have player collision, which gives us a kind of similar look of the same concept in mind. Okay, these are concrete objects, we can't just move through them. And if we go back to the view mode, we have optimization view modes, for example, light map density, that we will talk about in details later on in later sessions. So if I want to give you a peek right now, the gist of it is that we have a system for calculating lights in our scene, which is called lumen. When we turn lumen off and we want to use light maps, we're going to work with light map density, and this type of view mode is very useful when we are doing that. So keep that in mind for now, but later on we will talk about it in detail. And we also have some other stuff like level of detail. Again, when we go through lighting, we'll talk about that. And we have some other visualizations. For example, this is what specular looks like. Okay, very simple and plain, and this is what base color looks like, and we use it when we just want to see the diffuse color. And we also have something else. We can just put this on roughness, for example, and we see, again, useful when we are investigating our materials. And if I just put this on overview, here, overview, let me just find it. Okay, we can have different types of view all at once present on our viewport, and we can just use the one that we are more interested in. All right, now let me just put the view mode on lit, which is the most common one. We also have nanite visualizations. I'm going to talk about nanite in another session in detail. Nanite is a very useful feature that has been added to Unreal Engine 5, which basically gives us the opportunity to use a lot of objects and meshes and triangles in our scene, a lot more than we could have previously. So right now, if I choose triangles, for example, on nanite, nothing's gonna change because I don't have any nanite type of object here. So I put this back on overview. All right, let me just momentarily make this chair nanite, and you don't need to learn this right now. We're going to talk about it in detail, as I said. So right now, just sit back. Let me just enable nanite for this. It's gonna take a couple of seconds, and now we can see different nanite versions of this chair, okay, with triangles, classic, and everything. Okay, triangles is a useful mode we usually use with nanite. This other chair, which was a copy of that chair, also got nanite enabled. That's why that one is also visible with nanites. All right, we also have Lumen, which, as I mentioned previously, is a lighting system that has been added to Unreal Engine 5. It's a very useful one when we are working with stuff in real time, and we can just see how our lights work and change in real time. We don't need to build those lights and take renders like V-Ray. We can just see and check and test everything regarding the lights in real time with Lumen. So again, it's a very useful tool that we will discuss later. And we also have virtual shadow maps, which again is another topic that we're not going to discuss right now. It requires a session of its own, and also LOD, level of details. And right now, another thing that matters to me is these visual representations of sound and lights and sky and game mode. And sometimes these icons are kind of in the way and blocking my view. So if I push G on my keyboard, game view, okay, CG, I can just make them hidden and make them visible again. So anytime that those were in your view, you can just use G on your keyboard and toggle the view mode for them. Okay. And if you just added something like a light and you couldn't see the camera or the light, it's because the G mode is off. So again, push G and you can see that element. All right, we don't have anything else to talk about in that menu. Some of the stuff we're going to discuss later on. If we move on to the next item, which is show, we can just choose what to show and what to hide on our viewport. For example, the grid, I can just uncheck grid here and get rid of that. Similarly, I can do the same with anti-aliasing. So if you pay attention to the edges of the table, this is what they look like without anti-aliasing. They are kind of jagged. Okay. Again, what else do we have here? So let me just see what else. You can also use these same settings when you are giving your client the final file. So we also have some other items like atmosphere that we can show and not show. We have collision. See, we have these lines around the objects that collision has been enabled for them. And this is especially useful. Sometimes you are moving in your scene and something's blocking you and you cannot really see it. You don't know what it is. And you put this on show collision, you can see what it is. We also have fog. If we can just have fog and not have fog. We also have landscape. If that is present in our scene, we can choose to show it or not. Let's see, we have static meshes. All right, let me explain a concept to you. So All the objects that we have, all the elements that we have in our scene can either be of a static mesh or an actor. So if they are interactive, for example, imagine a light that can be switched on or off, or a type of light that we can change the intensity for, and we can just interact with that light or element, it's a type of actor. But if it's something that we cannot change or interact with and it just sits there, it's a type of static mesh. Now let me give you an example. Take this chair for instance. So if this chair is a regular chair, and when we want to have our client go through our scene and move through the scene, they cannot choose to do anything with this chair. It's a static mesh. But if they can change the color or change the type of texture that is used for the chair, it's not a static mesh anymore, and it's called an actor. And later on you could just go to content and make a blueprint for that chair that's going to be an actor in your scene. And that chair will be loaded into your blueprints, and it will not be in a static mesh anymore, which you will learn all about later on in the next session. So don't worry about these concepts just now. So now if I just go to this show icon and uncheck a static mesh, you can see that everything that was a static mesh is gone except for these two chairs, which we made into actors for demonstration purposes. All right, so for example, look at the floor. So the floor is back when we check the static mesh. We also have translucency, which deals with the objects that have translucency. So we get to choose whether or not we can see them. Okay, so we had that object. It's gone now. And I can just check it again and have it come back. All right, let's see what else we have here. We have skeletal meshes, which is for the characters that are rigged. Again, not related to our stuff. We have post-processing, which again has dedicated sessions, and we're gonna deal with the lumen and everything when we get to those sessions. So let's go to these three lines on the top left corner. So we have real time here, okay? And the next item that we have is show FPS, which is these numbers on the top right corner, these ones. So what is FPS, or frame per second? Basically the number of frames we can see in 1 second is very important for animators or game developers. So a lot of gamers who want high-end systems are looking for the latest GPUs to have a higher FPS. Now let me just show you everything in 3ds Max. So for example, if you look at this bar here at the bottom, these are the number of frames. So for example, most of the videos that we watch on TV or on our PCs are 25 to 30 frames per second, and that is adjustable, but most of them are 25 to 30 frames per second. So let me just give you a little demonstration. So I want to have 25 frames in 1 second, and I want to move something in my scene. For example, this cube, okay? So it's here, I want to move it there. And I want it to take 1 second. So I move it over there. And now basically it would be as if we have taken 25 photos or renders of this cube moving from A to B. So we have 25 photos that show us this cube's placement on that axis in 1 second. And I can adjust the number of frames that I want to have. For example, if I put this on 100, you can see that it took 100 frames for that cube to move from, let's say, A to B. Okay, so I can adjust the number of frames that I want to have. Now let's see roughly what type of FPS we are getting in Unreal. So we are getting almost 111. Okay, so we have 111 photos or frames in 1 second inside Unreal. And if your GPU is weaker than mine, you may have a lower FPS, and as you are moving throughout your scene and your scene is kind of getting heavier, you may even get a lower number than that. All right, now we don't need to see this right now, so we just disable it. And we also have a field of view, which is the scope of things that we can see in our view. We can just change it easily, and by default it's on 90. Okay, now let me tell you about a very useful shortcut. So if you want to zoom in on this object, for example this translucent object, you can just hold down right click and press C on the keyboard like so. You can just keep pressing it or hold it down and zoom in on whatever you want to zoom in. And if you want to zoom out, you can similarly hold down right click and press Z or Z on your keyboard like so. Okay, so C zooming in and Z zooming out. So C for zooming in and Z or Z for zooming out, and it will work as long as you're holding down right click. Now we have a few other useful options to explore right now, and I'm gonna tell you about them. So one of them is this create camera here. So if I click on it, let me just click on it this time, a camera, now it doesn't matter which type, a camera would be placed right here, as you can see. So let me just put another one here again, create camera. Okay, another camera. So it doesn't matter which type, you're gonna learn about camera types later on, but you can use this item to create cameras. All right, bookmarks. Bookmarks are very useful, and we use them when we want to visit a certain angle in our project frequently. For example, I'm gonna use this angle very frequently, and instead of just navigating back and forth to this angle, I'm gonna create a bookmark here. So I go to this item, bookmarks, and set bookmark, and I'm gonna call this bookmark 0. Okay, so this one is going to be bookmark 0, and let me choose another angle, and for this one I'm gonna set bookmark 1. All right, another one, for example this angle, this top down angle. Okay, I can set another bookmark for this angle, and I can easily navigate back and forth between these frequent angles by pressing the corresponding number. So for example, I can just choose bookmark 0 like so from the menu, or just press 0 or 1 or whatever on my keyboard, 0, 1, 3, whatever. Okay, bookmarks are very useful. Make sure to use them. We have another option called high resolution screenshot. So we can simply take screenshots from our scene, and we can also determine the quality. So if we want a higher quality than usual, we change this multiplier to 2, for example, but make sure to change this in small increments because sometimes it's going to be very big. So I took a screenshot, and this is what it looks like. I can see the icon and the cameras, and if you remember, I told you that if you don't want to see them, just press G on the keyboard. This time we put this on 4. It says that it's too large, and we just take it anyway, and it's gonna take some time to load because it's a very high resolution image, but I can just zoom in, and because it's a high resolution image, I can just see everything in great detail. All right, so that is how we take screenshots. We also have layouts. Okay, so we can change different layouts, for example, different views, and especially when we are using cameras in our work, we usually dedicate a part of our screen to that camera. So we have our viewport, for example, on the left, okay, like so, and we also have that camera's view on the right. So this is a very useful layout, and that's almost it. We also have advanced setting, which is basically a lot of advanced option that you're not gonna really need to know about right now, and it's just overkill. So all right, so in this session we basically got familiar with our viewports. We explored 80 to 90% of the options that we had. So make sure to practice and use different controls for your cameras, for your movement and navigation. And I'm sure you'll get the hang of it very soon. I hope you enjoyed this video, and I will see you in the next one.